Here's a brief but annoying message to let you know that you could have first heard this episode 9 months ago if you were a subscriber to our Iron Filing Society Patreon offering.
For the price of a pint and a St Clement's each month, you can get up to 4 episodes a week, 9 months before the rest of the world gets them. Early access to regular episodes, lots of other marvellous benefits, and there's absolutely no adverts or brief but annoying messages like this that will get right on your ticks.
Find out more and subscribe now at tftimemachine.com/ironfilings.
Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go, this is it!
This is Top Flight Time Machine. I am Andy Hotbody Dawson.
I'm Sam Lifty Delaney, so what?
We're back in the history box and we're still looking at the first ever issue of Loaded magazine from May 1994. We're stuck on the classified adverts page. And there's still about 6 or 7 different ads that we haven't looked at yet, but we won't do them all, surely. I kept looking back at the FX2000 that we did originally with some kind of longing in my eyes. Power Spark Ignition Unit, PB2.
Yeah.
Widely used in racing. $49.95. What a time to be alive.
Keep a close eye on Patreon, gang, because it's only a matter of time before IFS FX2000 is unleashed. I'm thinking minimum £12 a month.
Well, I mean, we could go for bigger than that because it could include, we could actually come round and soup your car up for you.
We'll soup your fucking car up.
We'll actually fit an FX2000 to it.
Are there any other podcasters or content creators on Patreon offering that kind of service? I doubt it.
I don't think there is. Anyway, right, which bit should we look at now then? Because
obviously there's a lot of drug paraphernalia. There's 2 drug paraphernalia ads. One's for light systems for you to grow your own marijuana plants at home.
Sensi. It's a Sensi bull.
Yeah, so they had to do this in code. There was such more...
Yeah.
It was sort of... In many ways, you look at the content of Loaded and think, oh, it was much more outrageous time because there's so much sort of stuff that would now be deemed very politically incorrect. But then you look at this and it's so coy. Do you know what I mean? When we live in an age where you can literally just Google buy skunk in my area and you know, or the dealers, like now they've got these ads and they've drawn a picture of what are clearly marijuana plants growing under a lamp, but they have to use this sort of coy terminology. That said, adolescents who get into drugs love the codes and use them even where not necessary because, especially with marijuana, I always think, certainly when I was a kid, it was sort of felt like quite a sort of very often a middle class kind of bit of rebellion. So, you know, the kids who were really into smoking and selling weed at my school, very often they were the sort of kids who actually went to nice houses, who lived in nice houses and their dads were like QCs or what have you, right? Which there was, there was people like that at my school and there was pure scum as well. And but it was.
Were you kind of straddled the two?
I had a foot in both camps. Absolutely, yeah. I was like one of those prisoners in jail who could walk on any wing, right?
Your father worked in the advertising agency, but you also just let your dog out the front door every morning.
Exactly. Well, like you've always said, my weeks were like EastEnders, my weekends like Howard's Way. And no one's ever summed up my childhood better than that, Andy, and that was courtesy of you. So I could traverse both things, but it was often the posher kids who were really into marijuana, and I noticed that they loved to use the codes because they were basically good boys from good homes, but they liked to feel as if they had a bit of edge, and marijuana gave them that opportunity. And they would love using the terms and the codes all the time. And I'd sometimes say to them, they say it to your face, go, why are you saying that now and it's just me and you? Do you know what I mean? Like they'd go, you got that thing? Got the amounts? That Henry you ordered? And I'd be like, do you mean the 1/8 of an ounce of marijuana that you have agreed to sell me? Yes. Oh, easy, mate. Keep it down. And you're like, look. You're play acting that you're Pablo Escobar, but, you know, you live in a large detached house in southwest London. Your father is a Queen's Counsel, right? You don't have to go through this meaningless charade, right, to make yourself feel a little bit edgier than you are.
You want to live like common people. You want to do what common people do.
A little bit. There's a little bit like that. I bumped into an old mate recently who was bragging about, his adolescent drug dealing antics. And I remember when I was a kid, I couldn't understand how some of the better off kids who I was mates with could always afford drugs, right? Because it was £15 for an eighth in those days. No idea what it is now. And I used to get, I can't remember how much, but let's say I got £5 a week pocket money. And you'd be out at the weekend with these kids and they'd be buying eighths, quarters. Sometimes they'd buy a large amount to sell to make their own lot back. And they'd think they were dead edgy. And one of these kids was even bragging to me about it recently. We're now in our 40s. Oh, yeah, I used to buy an ounce every weekend, blah, blah. And I was just like, yeah, but mate, your mum and dad were funding that. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't afford a 5-draw, right? Because by the time I'd got myself a can of fucking Stella and my bus fare home and back, that was me wiped out for the week, right? You were getting your parents to front you loads of money, lying to them, presumably. Or maybe you told them, Mother, I want to buy a 9-bar of hashish. Could you front me the money? Because it inspires me as a young entrepreneur, you see.
I'll be selling most of it and then turning a profit, and we'll split it 50-50.
Yeah. And, and so it was all a bit sort of, trying to be edgy, but often it was just funded by your rich parents. Yeah. But whatever, fair play to them all. The reason I'm not judging, middle-class teenage marijuana dealers. It's their bit of fun, I suppose. But all those memories have been triggered for me by the code word, the coding. Because everyone knows what they're on about, but they think they make it sound a little bit more dodgy and edgy by using code language. Just say this is a lamp to grow marijuana with.
When we were on tour last week, when we were in Leeds and Sheffield, on both occasions, both cities, I visited the largest indoor markets.
Right.
Because I love that kind of stuff. That's where the real shit's going on. That's where your small independent traders are hanging out. That's where stuff happens. And also, you can probably usually get cheap CDs as well. So I was in the one in Leeds, which I think was called Kergate Market. Sorry if I've got that wrong, Leeds people. But I was in there, and it's massive, and there's all sorts going on. There was some cheap CDs, but there was also a store hidden away in the corner, and it was called something like Marijuna. And there was a fucking leaf next to the lettering on the sign. So you knew what was going on there. I'm sure they weren't selling the stuff, but they were selling all the paraphernalia. A bit like in this advert, you get your heat lamps and whatever. I don't know, whatever it is you need. Earth, fucking, I don't know. How do you grow it?
I don't know. It's not anything I've ever attempted. All I know is it was
compost.
Lights. People I knew, I think, used to just stick it in their airing cupboard with a load of lights, Right. And then you need the seeds. But beyond that,
that's all factories now, isn't it? And they do it in lofts and they nick electricity from next door, and then you can always tell where it is because the snow melts on the roof.
Well, I've told you on several occasions about one of my most exciting memories where I went on a raid with the Berkshire Police Force of a marijuana farm. And I said, how do you locate these farms? I was like this, have you got a snout? have you got a canary bird? Wink, wink. No, mate, we just use a helicopter, goes over with the old heat sensors. Oh. So you don't have a Huggy Bear type character who gives you the word on the street.
You don't meet on the top floor of a car park that's been abandoned. Don't use it anymore.
Does he ever slide a briefcase across the floor in the shadows to you? And you open it up, and in it is the information he promised. No, mate.
No, just say where the snow's
we just got a helicopter.
It's very easy.
So that is. There was where I mentioned the other week that I went to a new rock and roll venue called Lafayette in the centre of London, the West End, and it's on Denmark Street. Denmark Street. That's the thing I was talking about. It's where all the famous music shops were.
Tin Pan Alley.
And I was telling my brother, I said, people think about music and instruments and whatnot when they're music publishers, when they think about Denmark Street. I said, but what I always think about is that in the late 90s, early noughties, when I first moved back to London and started working in the centre of town, was that there was a building just off Denmark Street, or on Denmark Street, what the entrance was, and it was a genuine, you hear this term a lot, right? But you never think it actually exists outside of silly make-believe films. But it was a genuine drug's den, right?
Right.
And you walked into this building and you just heard of it word of mouth. A friend of a friend told me it, right? Tell me it. And you would walk into this building and there was burly gentlemen, right, skulking in the doorway who'd give you the once over. And then you would walk up several flights of stairs, and at the very top, right, there was a hatch, a small hatch, like a letterbox size, like gap in the wall, right? And you would go up to it and you would say a drug name. In my case, it would. In those days, it would have just been marijuana, right? And then you handed your money through the gap, and they hand it back. This is the sort of thing that how you imagine drugs are dealt with when you're a child. That's how I imagined drug dealing to be when I was a kid.
Are you saying this was like Hamleys, but for drugs?
It was Hamleys. It was amazing. And day or night, you could go in there. So I was working in the West End. And sometimes on the way home, I would get off the tube at like Tottenham Court Road and just quickly jump off, go into this building. There was no kind of being shifty. You just walk in, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think, the police are they're gonna arrest everyone coming in now. It just didn't feel like that vibe at all. Walk up, there'd be loads of people in there. You get your drugs, you go home. And I can't remember who even told me about it, but all my mates knew about it, and it was just what we did for a while, right? And also. The other sort of thing was you knew it was not the best quality, but you accepted it because the transaction was so simple. There was none of the bother that there used to be in those days before phones and internet.
I can't believe the Met Police didn't know about this.
Wow, this story goes on. So we were visiting this. I can't remember how long it was going for, but I think it was like the best part of a year. And everyone knew about it. Just go, I'm just going to go over to Denmark Street and sort that and go up to that building, right? And it was like we stopped wondering. What we concluded was, right, there's never any old bill and everyone knows about it. It's not a secret. So what this must be is that the police have looked at it and said, well, there's going to be dealing anyway. At least this is done in a controlled, safe environment. There was never any violence that I saw, right? There was nothing dodgy going on. People just walked in, paid their money, walked out. That was it, right? But you could never see, like the Wizard of Oz, who was behind the wall, the drug wall.
And of course, perhaps the tenant of the building was perhaps in a business arrangement with certain people at the Met.
Whole building,
to regard the ongoing success of it all.
I suppose if it meant there was less street dealers on the streets of Soho, which is a sort of a tourism spot and where a lot of businesses are, the police would have thought, well, that's quite good because it's not ideal for us in a lucrative area like Soho for there to be loads of dealers or junkies walking around. So that's what I concluded. And so we thought, well, we're onto a good thing here. No more fucking mini cabs onto dodgy council estates in the middle of the night for us. We just go and do it like our grocery shopping, right?
Yeah.
Then one day in the Standard, I'm on the way home. Not a day that I've been going there. The whole place has been raided, including, if I remember correctly, special police jumping on zip wires down from helicopters onto the roof.
Hey!
Because the top room where all the drugs were kept had been galvanised with like thick layers of extra concrete and stuff like that.
Right.
So the old Bill just turned up out of the blue one day with all the fucking mechanical drills and battering rams and zip wires and the fucking lot. And they took the whole place down in a dramatic SAS style raid.
Cool.
And yeah, I didn't know. I thought, oh, that's a shame. That place is gone. But also, awesome. And then, again, I was conflicted because I was thinking, oh, glad I wasn't there when that went down. But simultaneously thinking, oh, I wish I'd been there when that went down.
Yeah. And also, I don't like the cops very much, but also, well done, cops.
Well done,
That's
cops. Good. Also, like, I feel bad for those dealers. They were quite nice, but also, bad luck, dealers. It was a confusing time in my life, to be honest. But I've never heard of anything like that. Not in this country before or since.
Nah. Well, I mean, I think I've said before, like when I was kind of young, me and my mates, we just never got into drugs because they were just so hard to get.
Yeah.
You know, I just wouldn't have known where to have asked.
Yeah.
So we just stuck with beer and that because it was just easier to get your hands on. And so, yeah, relatively drug-free upbringing. For the better, I think, you know, with hindsight.
For sure. Yeah, I think it was just, it was prevalent in my environment because it was just like, yeah, I mean...
London,
people just going,
yeah.
do you want, when you're very young, people just saying, do you want some of these drugs I've got?
Yeah.
And you end up going, yeah. And then it keeps happening like that for a while. And then you say, can I buy some off of you? And they go, yeah, all right, they're not doing that. And then you say, actually, I've now developed a taste for it. And I need you to direct me towards the person you buy it off. And then after that, you're fucked. Next thing you know, you're 40 years old in the fucking Priory. Crying and throwing cash at them, begging them to make it stop.
But I guess it's that thing, the bigger the city, the more vice there is and the easier it is to get involved. I remember once, this is probably about 20 years ago, I was walking through Manchester and I just got approached by a middle-aged woman who offered to suck me off for 20 quid.
Wow.
Just in the middle of the street.
Yeah. And what did you say to that?
I declined. She wasn't particularly attractive, I felt.
No.
I mean, that's not really important, to be honest.
No.
It's not really. It's a simple suck-off transaction. Then
no, I would like. I mean, call me sniffy, but
call me romantic.
I'm the romantic type. I would want them to be pretty.
I mean, it was. I was startled. Let's just say that.
I told you about when I lived on a road in Notting Hill, and there was all these prozzies on the corner, and it was the local prozzy corner. But they were, when I say prozzies, I mean they were proper like crack prozzies. Like they were terrifying.
Street walkers, I think they call them.
We moved in, and only once we'd moved in did we realise that on the corner of our street that we were quite close to the corner. Around about 9 p.m, 10 p.m. every night, they would just gather around, and it was pretty scary.
About.
They were pretty scary. They were like, you know, when you see photos of the dangers of drugs, like almost skeletal-like features, and and I was like, fine. It wasn't like I was going to call the police or anything like that. It wasn't like they were really antisocial. But sometimes what it would be like, sometimes if I was driving home late, because in those days I worked in the evening a lot, and if I drove home late and parked the car, and you know, like when you're just parking out and it's late and you're quite tired and all you want to do is get in your house, and as I was parking the car, they would assume that I was pulling up looking for business, right? And as I pulled up and started parking, suddenly this face, like of a wild woman, like a skeletal with like bulging eyes, all bloodshot, and like mad scarecrow hair, and like, you know, gaps in their teeth, suddenly appear at my window. And you'd be like, and I would, yeah, exactly.
Come hither, my pretty.
Is it? Dost thou want your cock sucking? Right? And I'd be like,
only 20 groats.
I'd be like, no, I live there. Just let me go in my home to my girlfriend. Please.
I'm a local resident. I have no grievance with you.
Let me pass.
Let me pass, old crone.
Let me pass, I beg you.
Please,
oh, come on. Please don't suck me off.
15.
I'll give you £15 just to leave me alone. Oh, that seems fair enough.
Jalapeño.
Yeah, I used to like jump out of my skin when they caught me by surprise. And I must have also told you this, that in the end, like we were renting, this was in my 20s, and we rented a flat that was like on the first floor of a house. But then my uncle, who was quite rich, he moved into the road. We'd been living there like a couple of years, and he said, listen, there's a house for sale at the other end of your road. I'm thinking of buying it. Said, great, we'll be neighbours. I was really excited, right? Because he's an uncle that I'm like pretty close to. And I said, yeah, that's great. And he said, yeah, but, you know, what's it like round there? I went, what do you mean? And what's it like on that street? And I said, I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what you mean. And he said, well, is it rough? And I just sort of laughed because
How much does it cost to get sucked off?
yeah, if you live in that part of London in that era, right? Then you take your. It was just sort of a very colourful and sometimes adventurous area, right? And it was sort of like there was always something going on in Ladbroke Grove kind of area,
All
right?
stripes of human life exist.
Yeah. So it wasn't like the worst place in the
human
world.
zoo,
It wasn't.
perchance.
It wasn't the most dangerous place to live. But at the same time, don't go and live there if you shit yourself about things very easily. Do you know what I mean? And so I just said, it's fine. But one of the reasons I said it was fine was that the police had done a clear up a few weeks beforehand where they'd just turned up on the corner one night and just basically nicked everyone. And there'd probably been some complaints, not from me, because I would not complain about the process. My attitude was they're doing what they need to do, and they're not bothering me apart from occasionally surprising me at my car window. I can live with that. Do you know what I mean? I thought they've got enough shit going on in their lives without me fucking getting them nicked. But someone had fucking grasped, and the police cleared it all up. So I didn't think to mention that to my uncle. Anyway, he bought the house. I'm sure it was very expensive. And he moved in. I knew what day he was moving in. And he moved in, like, my aunt and my three cousins, my three cousins were kids, so they all went away, like, to the countryside and left him to oversee the move, right? So on the first night...
Well, they went away, like, in the Second World War.
Yeah, they were literally... And I always sort of thought, this is a really good idea. I aspire to this. They're like, right, we're moving, that's a hassle. We're going to fuck off and stay with our mate, right? And we won't come back till you tell us the whole move is done and all of our stuff is done in the house, right? Lovely way to approach it. And so that's what they did. And so he had told me, I'm moving in, I'm on my own on the first night. And for whatever reason, I couldn't go around and see him. I think I was out. He's about 15 years older than me, this uncle, right? And in the middle of the night, I've said to my girlfriend, I said, it's great, my uncle's moved in down the road, what a laugh, he's going to be there, it's his first night, I hope he really enjoys it. In the middle of the night, we're woken up by these words, I'll never forget them. These exact words woke me up in the night. Just give me the fucking crack! Right? Like words that leave nothing to the imagination. So I've fucking woken up with a start, looked out the window, and one of the drug whores is back, and she is arguing with, I don't know whether he was her pimp, he was some sort of associate, but he didn't look like he was in good shape either. And they were in the middle of the road having the most almighty, violent, profanity-strewn row over a rock of crack at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I could see across the street the house my uncle had bought, right? And I'm looking up the street, and I just see the light in the bedroom window suddenly come on. It was his first night, and I felt so responsible that I was like, I'm going to have to go down and settle these two down, because I suddenly feel responsible for the atmosphere in this street. He's just spent a fucking £1 million, right? And I just get a text. And it just said something like from him. Like a minute after I see his light go on, I just get a text from him going, for fuck's sake. And then shortly after, the crack calls all returned, which he did sort of blame me for. But I don't think they interfered with his lifestyle. It was just one of those things that you get used to.
Just part of the local colour.
It was another one. I mean, it's that sort of area. You walk like 30 seconds past the crack course, and there's like an artisan bakery knocking out the old fucking sourdough, mate.
For everyone.
And the flat whites. That sort of place. So you just got to live with it or not,
Yeah.
So that's crack course for you.
So let's see what this advert says then that we're looking at. Sensible light systems and horticultural supplies. Based in Newport and Gwent. The right light, people, for all your growing needs. I've got to start wearing my reading specs for these classified ads because the lettering's just too small. Specialisation in all aspects of hydroponics. Full nutrient range, eco, Europonic and fluorescent sodium. This is just gibberish. I don't
Fucking
even know if I'm reading
bollocks,
the
isn't
right
it? And I don't suppose that any of it worked either. But there's a lot of, again, like I say, there's a lot of gullible middle class kids called
of course.
called Jeremy and Sebastian, who are like fucking, who get an allowance. That's how you know they're posh. It's not called pocket money, it's called an allowance. They get an allowance and they've saved up their allowance and they think, yeah, we're going to buy some lights and grow a massive crop. But I don't think it ever worked. There's another idea for what's called smoking paraphernalia and herbs. But the text, even with my reading glasses on, is so teeny tiny. I mean, it's terrible advertising. There's loads of text.
Well,
it's really small.
Not aimed at people,
There's no
like
pictures.
middle-aged men like us whose eyes are starting to pack up.
Fuck me. These are. I mean, I might have to get new glasses, mate.
They get a full colour 8-page catalogue. I can see that much.
Illustrating over 100 of our best-selling lines. £1.60.
The catalogue's £1.60.
We aim for dispatch
they're
of
based
goods
in
by
Tenby.
return of post, and we are very discreet. Our full mail order lists are sent out for free. So it's a P.O. box. But, yeah, I mean, I suppose the police just wouldn't have had time to look at this because it would be an easy arrest, an easy collar, as I believe they say in the world of cops, Andy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that...
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know whether they'd say, well, let's just insist on the P.O. box people giving us giving us the identity of the person who's got this P.O. box, and then we'll know who it is that's selling drugs in the post and we'll arrest them. Why didn't they do that?
Don't know.
Why, Andy? Why?
You can't.
Why?
You can't go back. You can't go back. But then the one in the bottom left-hand corner is play-by-mail soccer star, the world's original, biggest, and best soccer play-by-mail game. Remember we were talking about doing fantasy
we were
football
talking about
league over the
Fantasy
phone
League, and
back then, weren't we?
this is a bit before that, isn't it?
Yeah, this looks a bit more complicated. Features in this world-beating game include full match reports, including match highlights, giving details of all major match events, goals, own goals, penalties, near misses, fouls, bookings, sendings off, substitutions, etc. Match statistics showing shots on and off target, corners, percentage of play, offsides. This is the stat revolution that's taken over football recently, ahead of its time.
The people who did this didn't realise what they were starting.
Yeah. Because
The
you couldn't
Americanisation.
see this game was in your head. You couldn't see it, so that's what they
I
give you all the
know we've
stats.
moaned loads about stats and the football hipster and the need amongst the young generation of football fans to sort of turn the game into some kind of science for whatever reasons I can't understand. But it all comes from American sport. And I was thinking about this the other day. The reason American sport is so data sort of driven and how there is, people are sort of engaged in the data as they are in the actual spectacle. It's for one very simple reason, Andy. American sports are really boring to watch. Yeah?
Exactly, yeah. They go for ages.
And therefore, in order to elevate it, you need to add other things that don't actually happen on the pitch for you to follow and examine and become engaged with, right? And that's the stats, particularly NFL and baseball. Because basketball's obviously slightly less boring than them, right?
Yeah.
So it's those two ones where they just go on and on about the stats, right? And ditto cricket here in this country. Yeah, cricket's a fun sport, but it can be fucking boring and drag on a bit. And they do wear trousers, which, I'm sorry, that rings alarm bells for me, right? Any sport in trousers. So,
well, I know you feel like that. That's why darts and snooker are something that I don't think you'll ever.
but you know the thing is,
fully.
they're indoor sports. So there's trousers indoors are okay, but if you're doing a sport outdoors and you're wearing neatly pressed trousers, you've got a problem. Anyway,
Think again, yeah.
But again, you have to get to really appreciate cricket. The spectacle itself is not thrilling enough. Because it's a bunch of geezers in trousers and they don't have to spend a long time in between each bit of action just dicking around, right? They're always titting about with their jumpers, aren't they? Can you hold my jumper?
Yeah, or wrapping them around their waists and stuff.
He's
over the shoulders.
He's asking one of his mates here to hold his jumper because he says it's making him feel a bit bulky. So he's handing it over And the umpire is tying the jumper around his waist. That's the 5th jumper he's got round his waist. Fucking hell. Anyway, everyone's scribbling. If you've ever been to the cricket, which I have, which is a great thing to do, but they've all got their little books and they're writing their numbers down in their books, right? All of this is because the spectacle in itself is slow, stop-start and boring. Football is not. Football is exciting, thrilling, 100 miles per hour, surprising, romantic, amazing, right? You don't need the stats, lads. You just need to turn up. Here's my Sam Delaney's how to enjoy football. Turn up, get in the stadium, sit on your chair, say hello to the blokes next to you. Bit awkward.
Hello.
Hello, mate. You're right. Did you,
all right, yeah.
Did you come in the week? No, I couldn't make it. I was working. Yeah. Anyway, no, I think we'll get a result today. Get all that out of the way.
Yeah.
Just look at the game. Just look at it. Watch what happens. At the end of the game, go home and do something else.
Yeah.
That's it.
Don't spend any time on social media.
You don't need to do. You don't need to do a graph. I accidentally expressed an opinion about football the other day on Twitter, which is I was ashamed of myself for so many reasons. One is it's so basic to have opinions about football. Second is, why does my opinion count? Thirdly, it wasn't even an interesting or original opinion. It was just a tweet done out of boredom and frustration while I was watching West Ham lose to Manchester United. And all I wrote was, and I'm embarrassed to even tell you, Andy, right? Because you'll be so ashamed that a man that you work with would write a tweet so tedious. I wrote,
Come on, then.
I am sick of Moyes' negative tactics.
I saw that tweet. Yes.
What did you think? Did you think, oh, for God's sake, you're better than that, Sam?
Well, I thought, well, this was inevitable. I thought this would come eventually. And what I thought was that my immediate response was to reply to it and to say, bring back Tree Man. But I didn't think that would go down very well.
Well, it was just
you were
like
frustrated.
off the cuff. It wasn't even indicative of a bigger or deeper feeling towards, or more profound. I'm not sort of. It wasn't. I wasn't one step away from going noise out. Right. I was just sort of like bored and watching the telly, and I suppose it was in many ways it was a cry for help. But I regretted it as soon as I sent it. But the thing is, it's amazing the degree to which West Ham fans will get angry with each other more than other fans. Right.
Oh, yeah.
What?
I mean, I had it earlier in the season when we had 2 fit strikers for the entire squad and were playing with 2 up front. Yeah. And I was saying this was a disgrace and a massive recruitment mistake.
Yeah.
And people say, why would a third striker come and sit on the bench and not get any game time?
Classic, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go any... Sorry.
We've had that same conversation at West Ham before. Anyway, but I'm glad to know Sunderland fans do it too. Because I was starting to think it was West Ham fans to just argue with each other.
Twitter's the worst.
I don't get involved usually in that on Twitter because although I've got a West Ham podcast, it's subscriber only, and there's a little community who are kind of all right with it. They're fun, you know. But on this occasion, all I said was that 24 hours later, someone tweeted me with a screenshot of another tweet which was defending Moyes' negative tactics that obviously I was probably very well reasoned, much better than my tweet, but I couldn't be bothered reading it because I didn't even believe in the tweet that I'd done. I'd just done it. Who knows why? It was like what you call a brain fart. Do you know what I mean? And this guy's gone. He's CC'd me in, and this is what he's written, Andy. This will astonish you. Do you know what he wrote? He wrote, David Moyes is an excellent football manager, whereas Sam Delaney is excellent only at turning up on Channel 5 list shows and talking about choppers and how big wagon wheels were in the 70s.
Well, at least he's done his research.
I've never done anything of the sort. I nearly wrote back and went, I've never done that.
Hang on.
I wasn't even alive to know about the 70s. But I can understand why he would make that assumption because obviously there was a time where I popped up on a lot of fucking shitty talking head programmes. That is true. And none of them were about the 70s. Because I would not have been qualified. And I did have some standards. I wouldn't talk about things that I had zero experience of. So I never talked about choppers or wagon wheels in the 70s. Did I turn up on a variety of other similarly cheap and shit talking head shows on Channel 5? Yeah, but like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But I was a bit upset, but all I wrote was fair, because it was fair. I'm not an excellent football manager. He is a football manager. You wouldn't say he was excellent, but he is a football manager of experience. But I was only expressing an opinion. It doesn't mean that I was saying, I know more than David Moyes and I should manage West Ham. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, if Elon Musk wants to bring in any kind of massive change to Twitter now that he owns it, I suggest it would be not to charge people to be verified, but to charge people 5 pence to reply to an original tweet of someone.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that'll cut it all down pretty quick.
Mate,
just 5 pence, not much, but you'll think twice before you.
If Elon Musk asked me,
like
I'd say, listen, mate, you're busy. You can't run this in a hands-on way. Appoint Andrew Dawson as your chief of operations and policy, and put Dawson in charge of Twitter. Fucking hell. Do you think
you're going to put me in charge of COVID yesterday? Would you in charge of Twitter as well?
Would you limit freedom of speech quite radically?
Would I limit freedom of speech radically? Oh, I don't know. I just find a way so people could just switch off replies they didn't want to see.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, but there's got to be ways.
Would you charge for opinions? Like, so if someone wanted to express an opinion on something, they'd have to pay £5.
I don't know. I don't care about Twitter anymore. I'm sick of it. I've done Twitter now. I'm on to other things.
Completed it, mate. I'm on Discord these days.
Yeah, see what that's about. Anyway, I think that's the end of the classifieds page. I don't know what we'll do next week. Must be something else in the magazine we can look at, but we'll have a.
Maybe we'll change subjects.
Yeah, maybe we will.
Maybe Loaded issue 1 has been rinsed dry.
Yeah, you don't know. You'll find out in good time. Need to know basis. But thanks for listening, and goodbye.
All the best. Bye bye.